big segment. That's Greg Willard.
Yes, he is.
Professor at St. Louis University Law School, also the KTRS legal analyst. Good morning, Greg Willard.
Good morning, McGraw and Kelly.
Hi there.
What is going on in Washington, D.C. today that is so important?
There is a fascinating case that is about to be argued in about a half an hour, McGraw, in the United States Supreme Court coming out of Ohio. See if we can set the stage.
Right.
Okay.
A Navy veteran, Larry Harmon, went to the polls in his precinct where he had lived for about 16 years and went to cast his vote in 2015, and they said, sorry, Larry, you're not registered. He says, I've voted here for years.
Right.
And they said, oh, we kicked you off the voter rolls.
Aha.
It turns out that Ohio, like many other states, has adopted a system to clean up the voter rolls. And they set in place a system that says if you don't vote in 2 consecutive elections, we will send you a postcard. And if you don't respond and subsequently vote, we're going to kick you off the voter rolls. Now, I don't know about, McGraw, you and Kelly, but if I get a postcard in the middle of the year from the St. Louis County Board of Elections, I don't think I treat it the same way perhaps as a notice from the IRS
Right.
or somewhere.
Exactly.
Right.
So Harmon says, I don't remember getting any notice. And they said, too bad, you're out of here, you can't vote. He sued.
They wouldn't let him vote, so
Wouldn't
he didn't
let him
vote.
No, because they'd kicked his name, they had stricken his name, McGraw and Kelly, from the voter rolls. So he's taken it now, and it's gone. He lost in the district court, and the Court of Appeals in the Sixth Circuit reversed.
Right.
And Ohio then petitioned for cert, and the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case. So the sort of the lines are, on the one hand, you have the proponents of this that say, well, remember the 1960 presidential election and all the dead people in Cook County that voted for JFK.
Right.
Or Precinct 13 in Texas when LBJ was elected to the Senate. We have got to get tough on voter fraud.
Right.
Now, query how a Navy veteran would qualify as voter fraud, Mr. Harmon, but let's put that aside. On the other side of the ledger, McGraw and Kelly, is you don't have to have gone very far in grade school to know about the sordid history in this country of the franchise, the vote, being
Right.
taken away from people.
Right. Trying to suppress the vote.
Sure, poll taxes, Jim Crow laws, it's just despicable.
Right.
So where does this system that Ohio and other states have, is it truly to try to militate or eliminate voter fraud,
Right.
such as it may be, or does it have a more insidious motive behind it? So the case will be argued. What Ohio is saying is we have followed the federal statute, the National Voter Registration Act, and it has a very clear prohibition, the federal statute. You cannot kick somebody off the voter rolls,
Right.
a state,
Right.
if the reason is solely because they didn't vote.
Right.
And what Mr. Harmon is saying is, look, I didn't vote a couple years. I didn't want to vote a couple years.
Right.
I must say to the two of you, I've done the same thing.
Right. Now, what about, though, the person who says, when I got out of college, I registered to vote in Arizona because I was staying with my sister. I registered to vote. I think she still gets things sent to me from the voter roll down in Arizona. I don't live there anymore. So when do we purge the polls or the rolls to say, hey, Kelly Jackson hasn't showed up in 10 years, 5 years. She moved 6 different times. She didn't call and register with the, what do we do? Do we keep Kelly Jackson on her high school address because she was there 30 years ago?
Right. Great question. I think if I were king of Ohio, if I were King George of Ohio, what I would say is, well, we ought to do a little more than sending a postcard.
Exactly.
There ought to be a little more effort to confirm that McGraw has moved from Arizona,
Right.
Rather than a single postcard. Ohio says, well, that's too costly. To send McGraw
Right.
a postcard, we've got to prepare it, stamp, all this stuff. It's too costly. One's enough.
Right.
Well, one may be enough, but I think it's important to take a step back. there are a lot of people from time to time say, "Oh, my vote doesn't matter." Kelly and McGraw, tell that to the people in Virginia right now,
Yeah.
where one vote
Right. It was a tie.
out of 10,000 would have made the difference. Tell that to the people in Florida in the year 2000, the presidential election, where 537 votes,
Right.
one way or the other.
There are some states that don't have or have same-day registration, like Minnesota, where you go to the poll, you register right there, and then you go and vote.
Many states have same-day registration. And in fact, North Dakota does not have registration. You show up with an ID, some bona fides that this is where you live, and you can vote. But most states have some form of registration, including Missouri.
Right.
And the real rub here is the point you raise is, well, okay, if what's going on if McGraw used to live in Arizona and, oh, golly gee whiz, he's still voting by absentee in Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so he's voting in Arizona, he's
in
voting in
Missouri.
Cottleville,
Yeah.
and wherever else you may have
Yeah.
lived. In Nebraska.
Or what about this? What about I own a second home down in Arizona? They have a local property tax. They're going to tax me, but I'm registered to vote in Missouri. I can't vote on the local property tax down in Arizona because I'm registered to vote here.
Correct.
So I can't, I'm being taxed without being allowed to vote.
Right. And I think if we just kept the discussion in that narrow band of what is right or wrong in terms of your franchise, but we can't close our eyes to the history in this country of the franchise being taken away for
Right.
very sordid reasons. And that has to be part of the conversation. I think it will be in about a half an hour in the Supreme Court.
Very convoluted. All right. While we still have you, North Carolina, some judge there, some court there threw out their congressional maps. You think this is a big deal?
Oh, I do, McGraw. I think we may be very quietly, but it's going to sneak up and be a Saturday morning cartoon kapow, a political cataclysm. We talked on the air several months ago about the Gill case out of Wisconsin that's pending now in the Supreme Court. And the concept is political gerrymandering. And it's where congressional districts, state legislative districts, they're drawn in a manner to favor one party or the other. There's a case in Maryland now where the Republicans are challenging partisan gerrymandering. Last night, a 3-judge panel in North Carolina, for the second time, looked at North Carolina's congressional districts and said, these are unconstitutional. They violate the First Amendment because you're discriminating on the basis of political views,
Right.
and they violate the 14th Amendment, equal protection. So what I think this political cataclysm may be, and it has a direct impact on Missouri, is that we may see in the next 1 to 3 years a wholesale redrawing on a much more nonpartisan basis of congressional districts. We've also talked on the air. I don't care about anybody's politics. I don't care about our viewers' or listeners' politics. But if you look at the ratio of Republicans to Democrats in the Missouri congressional delegation, newsflash, it doesn't represent the political makeup of the Missouri body politic.
Well, right, it's what, 8-2 or something, right? Or
Something like
7-2
that,
or whatever
and
it
we're not a 75% Republican state.
Right.
But Lacey Clay is going to get elected every year.
Right.
And Billy Long down in southeast Missouri is going to get elected every year. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing politically, I don't care.
Right.
But as a matter of constitutional law, we soon may be hearing, as the voters in North Carolina heard last night,
Yeah.
that's unconstitutional, and we're going to put a stop to it.
Stay tuned. Greg Willard, that's only about a quarter of a credit. He was short today. He was short and sweet today, so that's only a quarter. We don't just give away credits here. You have to earn them. Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Kelly McGraw always